coordinator just thought I had the legs going or something. But no, it was a perfect call. Glad it worked. We made some big plays today.
From Oakland to Sacktown, the Bay Area and back down. Cali is where they put their neck down. Give me love.
You came to the party, Oakland. You did good. You danced a little bit. You weren't a wallflower. But at the end of the day, it was just not enough. Guys, I think it's called, because it's been a while, I think this is called a winning streak. I know plenty about losing streaks this year. I'm going to have to check the dictionary, the NFL dictionary again, to be sure. But I'm pretty confident that 2 wins in a row constitutes and is defined as a winning streak. This is the Hindsight 20 podcast. I'm your host, Jerry Mallory. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening. Yes, our boys with their second victory in as many weeks at Ford Field, defeating the Oakland Raiders, and we have plenty to talk about. It's funny, man. I envision doing this show, and hey, we talk about during the season a game here, then we'll talk about the opponent. Every now and then I could, kind of intersperse some things going on, news and whatnot, but the Lions don't roll like that in 2015. There is plenty to talk about as we set this table, not just the game in Oakland, not just the Thanksgiving Day game against the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to talk about the 97-1 scandal. Everyone's been talking about it with Mike Valenti. I'll give you my thoughts on it. We also have a new president in Rod Wood. So there's plenty that we're going to talk about. We even have Chris Gandy, who is also in the podcast universe and heavy on Twitter. He'll be joining us. We have a segment with him. And yes, we will get into your questions. So let's talk about this game first and foremost. But before we do that, pump the brakes. Let's take care of a little business. Detroit Sports Podcast Network is what we are part of. I'm telling you guys, I was just reading an article. It's talking about how, how video killed the radio star, and they had the whole song. Podcasting, I'm not just going to say it's going to kill radio, but podcasting is where it's at. And so in terms of Detroit sports, you've reached it. Detroit Sports Podcast Network. We can be found on DetroitSportsPodcast.com. If you're part of the Apple clan, you're an Apple head, go to iTunes, subscribe to Detroit Sports Podcast. Boom, we'll be right there. For me, Android guy, I really like the Podbay application, Podbay. So it's not just me on here. You've got Doc and Jock. You've got Vinny. You've got, fantasy. We've got Tigers Talk. We even have a Pistons show. So once you subscribe, each and every day when a new show pops up, 6 days out of the week, you'll get a new show. Not just myself, but the rest of the crew. Now, let's talk about the game. Yes, we were victorious. And there was a few things that went on that were good. There were some that were bad, but a win is a win is a win. So starting off early in this game, we had the early ball movement, which was good. But just like Green Bay, I felt like missed some golden opportunities last week early on, like their first 2 or 3 possessions. It was the same for Detroit. You start off, you're moving down the field. That's great. Pass here, run there. That's awesome. But you end up with 3 points. The first time is because of Eric Ebron. Ebron with just a flat-out drop. And I think we saw a transformation, and Caldwell can paint it however he wants, just like he did with Amir Abdullah. I think Ebron went in the doghouse, and Abdullah went out of the doghouse because Abdullah got the lion's share, pun intended, of the carries, whereas Ebron kind of fell off. And that's one of the questions that we will talk about and answer in just a few minutes. So, and it's the thing with Ebron. We can go on and on about the guy, but I'll say it once, I'll say it again. You draft a guy at number 10. He's a tight end. However, he struggles catching the ball and he struggles blocking. And to me, it just seems like he drops the ball at the most inopportune time. It's always, to me at least, it seems this way. It's always on third down where it would have been a drive sustainer or in the end zone. This guy to me is like the drive killer. So the second possession, moving on from Ebron, and we'll talk about him a little bit later, was where Amir Abdullah, and I'm watching this, sitting down, and I see Abdullah. He's lined out wide, and there's a linebacker on. I'm like, this is a great mismatch. I hope the Lions see it. I hope Stafford sees it, and I hope they execute. Well, yes, Stafford saw it, but it was not a completion. We had to settle once again for a field goal. Now, Chris Gandy, who will be joining us in just a second, feels as though it was Abdullah's fault. To me, I think it was slightly overthrown. In any event, early ball movement, but you only get a field goal. Now, this is the issue that you have with this, because what you do, you allow a team, even if they're struggling, to get right back in the game, unless you're putting up sevens, unless you're getting that touchdown. Field goals, and that's exactly what happened. First half, we're shutting this team down defensively. Kudos and hats off to the whole unit on the defensive side of the ball. And we're settling, although moving the ball, going up and down the field, first down here, first down there, we're settling for field goals. Hats off to Matt Prater, who went ahead and made his field goals and his extra points today. We should give him a big round of applause for that, because that had been an issue. But here's what happens. So you go into the third quarter, and once again, the Lions, you realize the third quarter counts, right? You realize you can get yards, dare I say first downs. I'm about to get real crazy, Lions. You can even get points. Yes, you can get points in the third quarter. I don't know if they know that or not. And apparently, we're not 97-1, not even close to it. But it seems like, they got a lot of people that like to listen about them. Listen, when they're talking about them. So maybe Bill Keenis or someone lower than him is listening to this little measly podcast. Well, send this message to the boys. Third quarters actually count. It was just like the Minnesota game that I sat there in game after game, where they're not lighting the world on fire in quarters 1 and 2, but they're getting some yards, some points. Third quarter was nothing. It was just like, dude, get something. I'll settle for that field goal. Now, the issue with the field goals are, though, Oakland, who you've been shutting down all game, third quarter, they drive down the field, get a touchdown. They had one really good drive. We had 3 or 4, but it's 9-7, just like that. And then Oakland takes the lead. Fourth quarter comes and things change. Defensively, getting the stops that we need. And then there was Theo Reddick. This guy, he's clutch, man. We can go back to last year. We can talk about the game against Miami. We can look at this year, look at the things he did helping us win in Chicago. And now this game. When the fourth quarter comes, it's Theo Reddick time. And again, he produced, catching, running, doing whatever was necessary. And you know how the story goes. We end up winning this game. Now, the run game was serviceable. I think they did the best that you can reasonably expect them to do, given the circumstance of having horrible run blocking. As soon as they get the ball, there's a defender or two right there. They're making guys miss. They're breaking 2 or 3 tackles just to get 4 or 5 yards. If the big boys up front, Swanson and Warford and Tomlinson, if they create holes, when Amir Abdullah makes a guy or two miss, he's making a linebacker miss. And when you make a linebacker miss, those runs are 10 yards, 15 yards, 20. And so, but they did as best as they could. Joique Bell as well. And I've been critical of Joique Bell based on his performance. Is he fully recovered from his Achilles and other injuries? Well, today he looked great. Huge run at the end of the game, fighting for that extra yard, which kind of sealed the deal. In addition to that, he had a really nice catch and a couple break tackles for a nice reception there early in the first half. So, I'm pleased with the team. They did what they had to do, and I'm never going to be upset about a win, just period. It's not me. Even my boys, Doc and Jock, listen to them, their last show. And Jock is, saying because the win means the draft position and this and that, and Caldwell may increase his chances. To me, there is no negative. There is not a negative byproduct when you win. A win is great. There's rare exceptions. Last game of the year, you lose and you get an Andrew Luck or something crazy like that, and then you win and you drop. But in terms of the team this year, I know what's at stake, and we had the number 1 pick. Who are we racing to the front line to get this year anyway? That's the other thing. Are we just that obsessed with getting the number 1 pick so we can get Joey Bosa? Are we that obsessed with getting the top pick so we can, draft Paxton Lynch? Really, this year doesn't even really apply to wanting to lose, suck for luck, that whole thing that people like to say. Nonetheless, I'm not complaining about a win. I get it. You don't want Caldwell to stay. You don't want this guy to stay. You want the pick, but a win is always great because there's still majority of players on this team this year will be back next year. So they have to learn how to win. They have to learn how to do what's necessary. The young guys getting the experience. And if you have a good GM, whether you're picking number 1, number 5, or number 25, odds are you will accumulate some solid players. And lastly, when it comes to Caldwell and the GM, they have to do more than just this win. I don't think it's anything the GM can do, and Caldwell has to do a lot more. And that's something that I will be talking about a little bit later. So to me, I don't get into the negative byproducts of wins. It's a good win. I'm satisfied. Now, in terms of player of the game, last week I gave it to 2 guys. I'm going to do the same thing this week. And, the 2 guys I gave it to last week was Stafford and Golden Tate. They really are in the running once again today. Golden Tate played really well. Did what he had to do on special teams, caught some nice balls. He's just hard to bring down. And at a certain point, once we did get the ball moving in the second half, it was because of him. We had to abandon those first down runs. They weren't working. So you give it to him. You get the short pass to him, and he turns the short pass into 3, 4, maybe even more yards, which gives you a more manageable second down. And so, you really appreciate him. And then Stafford played a pretty good game as well, running it in. But I'm going to go defense. And I'm going to give it to our 2 cornerbacks. It's Nevin Lawson and it's Darius Slay. If you know me, I'm a fan of Nevin Lawson. Now, some will say he's a little too touchy-grabby, even like Chris Gandy, who will be joining us soon. In my opinion, for my gratification of a cornerback, when you're coming from the college, where you can be more touchy-grabby, I think a lot of the good ones start off that way. But the fact that you're always there, when a throw is made, you're right in that area, even if you're, borderline pass interference, the fact that you're there means with a little adjustment of technique, you can be a solid corner. I think that's what we saw with Darius Slay. The first year he was getting whistle after whistle, flag after flag, pass interference. He was always there on the play, but it's a little too touchy, a little too grabby. I saw that with Nevin Lawson this preseason, and I said, you know what? I get it. The penalties are bad, but he's always in the area. If he can adjust, get comfortable with the game, the speed, and learn to acclimate his style of play now to the NFL, it can be good. It can give you, nice return. The dividends will be good. And that's what Nevin Lawson is starting to do. So him and Darius Slay are my players of the game. Now, Slay, who, I'm a fan of, but I gave him the business when he deserved it early in the year, calling himself Big Play Slay, but giving up the big yards to Emmanuel Sanders and the touchdowns to Emmanuel Sanders and the big yards to Demaryius Thomas and the touchdowns to Demaryius Thomas. Like, dude, don't call yourself that, but, kind of come out the gates a little weak. Maybe he got humble. He had a really good year last year. Maybe he felt like the first 2 or 3 games of the year he had arrived. Perhaps he was going for more interceptions instead of just good coverage. He was maybe hanging with Dre Bly too much. I don't know. Last 6, 7 games, guy's been lights out. And, Amari Cooper, who is a fine young receiver. He's got speed, he's got hands, you name it. As well as Michael Crabtree, who's had a pretty good year so far. They didn't do much. Same for Derek Carr, who is a good young quarterback. You look at stats and you see him with, 300 yards in this game and 3, 4 touchdowns in that game. And our defense, led by Slay and Lawson, in my opinion, did not allow it. Same with the Tay train, as some of the Oakland fans like to call him, Latavius Murray. He didn't do much either, and that's a credit to the front 4 as well as the linebackers. But player of the game for me goes to Darius Slay and Nevin Lawson. It wasn't just Slay on Cooper the whole game. Lawson had a chance. Quandre Diggs played pretty good too. But if I'm giving my players of the game up, it's to those 2 cornerbacks, Mr. Slay, Mr. Lawson. Kudos to you. All right, guys, as promised, let's take a listen as Chris Gandy, who, it's funny, man. This guy, he's part of the Caldwell clan. Like, he's family. Just listen to it. You'll hear what I'm talking about. This is the segment I did with Chris Gandy. All right, guys, as promised, we've got the one and only Chris Gandy joining us now. He has a podcast of his own, which he'll be talking about in just a second. But I didn't know this. I've known Chris now for about a year and a half. I did not know he was an honorary family member of Jim Caldwell. Chris, you on the line, man? What's going on?
Yeah, man. I got adopted today. The Caldwell family took me in, man.
Tell us about it. How did you become an honorary Caldwell today?
I had to call upon some high up connections and get some better seats. I'm a season ticket holder like you, Jerry, and I asked and said to my grandfather, "Hey, any way you can get a ticket to the game?" And my grandfather called and made some connections. Come to find out, Caldwell is a distant cousin. So black folks, we got many cousins, and we stick to our cousins. We claim our family. So not only am I in support of Caldwell as the head coach, but he's also a distant cousin. So
see, it all makes sense now, man. It all makes sense because for those of you that don't follow Chris and his show on Twitter, he's been in support of Caldwell, and he probably didn't even realize that there was some connection. And let me ask you one more question about this, because Caldwell is laid back, he's reserved, kind of even tempered. What was his family like? I think you said his wife was there, maybe some children or whatnot. What were their disposition? Kind of like the coach, or were they a little bit more animated?
No, calm, cool, and collective. I caught myself in the box, definitely being, the loud fan, getting everybody riled up. But, just like everybody else, they want to see a Lions victory. The wife was very intelligent, following the game. I mean, you can tell she's been around the game for a long time. And it was just a great opportunity, great people, great family. But at the end of the day, I was just thankful that I got an opportunity to see my grandfather. He's never been to Ford Field before.
Oh, that's cool.
Silver Dome. So we got everybody together, man. It was just a family affair. The holidays coming up. Hope that you have a great holiday. So it was just a great time, man, all around.
That's cool. Now, let's talk a little bit about your show before we get into the Lions. Tell the people where you can be found at on Twitter. Tell them a little bit about your show. You got a good thing going, man. Give them some info on it.
Yeah, much appreciated. So Those Detroit Guys podcast, we have our website at thosedetroitguys.com. Been following the Lions for, since I go back to 1995, 96. During those days, grew up a big Lions fan, moved away, went to Houston, moved to Chicago for work, just relocated back to Detroit. And a buddy of mine, Irv, who does a podcast with me, we text each other, weeks before the 2013, 2014 season, said, "Hey, man, what do you think about a podcast? What do you think about doing a show about the Lions?" I had loved the coverage for the Friday Detroit, some things I've seen you do. And I saw a great opportunity because being, in those other regions, I've seen that we don't get the best coverage. And I wanted to get our coverage out there to fans of the Detroit Lions.
That's true.
And get our word out there on the street because we don't get enough time on ESPN or get any positive media from the radio stations and sometimes even our journalists that write for the team.
Yeah, he's got some good things going over there, guys. So do yourself a favor. If you're not familiar with Chris Gandy, you're not familiar with Irv, check them out by all means. Again, it's the theme here on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. We support those who support us, especially when they're quality like what you guys got going on. So let's talk about the game. We got this already figured out. You're a distant cousin. You're part of the Caldwell clan. We know you got a great show going on, but it was a pretty good game. The Raiders came to town. They were stumbling a little bit, but they're still, they had a better record than us. They've had some success this year, but we took care of business. What's your opinion and thoughts on the game as a whole, Chris?
Oh, like I love to see is when the team doesn't turn the football over. Stafford protect the football. He didn't throw for a bunch of touchdowns today, but protected the ball, got in the end zone. We dropped 2 touchdowns. I mean, Amir dropped 1. He runs underneath that ball, not dive. I think that's in the end zone. And Ebron, I feel bad for the guy because, anytime the ball is thrown his way, it's kind of like a little leprechaun's on his back. It just jumps on him and plays a little extra defense. But the Lions played well today. I thought they ran the ball effectively. I don't know if they eclipsed 100 yards, but we were averaging 4 and 5 yards a carry. Joy Bell could have scored at the end of the game. I thought the defense played phenomenal back-to-back weeks. Granted, the Raiders, they're not a good team historically, but they've been a competitive team this year. Darius Slay shut out one of the up-and-coming top receivers in this league, in Amari Cooper. And just all-around good game. And I saw Haloi Nada get some pressure. So that's what I knew it was a good day for the Lions. The Haloi Nada in the defensive line got to Derek Carr in the second half when they needed to. So I'm happy about the win. Stats weren't great, but, hey, all around, great team victory. Let's get ready for the Eagles.
A win is a win, baby. I'm with you 100% on that. Now, I know your stance on this next question, but for those that are listening to the Hindsight 20 podcast, maybe they aren't familiar with your stance because a lot of people, after this win, people are happy, but there's always the other side of the coin where, man, they just keep losing, having a chance to get a top 5 draft pick. Or you hear, Caldwell's job is now going to get more secure, Sheldon White. So there's kind of like two camps going on now. And I think it's not quite 50-50, but it's a lot closer to 50-50 than I personally think it should be. What is your stance, Chris, on this team? Wanting them to win no matter what? This may cost them draft picks. It may keep guys in-house that we may want to see leave. Do you want them to win despite that? Or do you want them to lose a few games, get a good draft pick, ensure wholesale changes in the front office and the coaching staff?
Yeah, very simple. I do not want us to lose football games. I'm a Lions fan. I'm a Lions I don't like to say I'm a media person, but I'm a media person. I follow the team with a vested interest, and I want to see us to win. My Sunday nights are terrible when the Lions win. I don't want to be miserable for the rest of the year. The Lions simply cannot afford, number one, to keep getting top draft picks. One of the reasons why we are struggling this year is because we've gotten top draft picks, and we are continually having to extend them, get big deals, and we can't manage our salary cap. The big reason why, in my opinion, Tom Milan and Martin Mayhew are gone. When you have big salary caps like Sue, Stafford, and Calvin, it's hard to manage that. They brought in basically a CFO from a bank that says, hey, I don't know how to run a football team, but I know one thing. He's saying, I know how to manage salaries. I know how to manage finances. So in this opinion, Caldwell going forward has 11 wins in the previous season, yet to be determined what he has. He's going to be above 500 in his 2 years as a Lions head coach. Giving the man 3 years minimum, to me, is where you should give a head coach an opportunity. Ken Wisenhunt, the guy we wanted to come in last year, he's out of the team down there where Marcus Mariota's at in Tennessee Titans. But they went god-awful. They were, 2-23.
Yeah,
Caldwell, he still sits at, That's 11 wins, and he's got 3 so far. So he's still sitting at 14 wins in 2 years. Name the last Lions coach that's done that. That's a hell of a Lions trivia question for you. But I personally think that this team going into this season was handcuffed. We brought in an aging Haloti Ngata. We couldn't sign anybody on the defensive line. Injuries have piled up, and our best player on defense, probably on the team, is not playing this year. This team was handcuffed going into the season and have a great opportunity to be competitive this year. I'm not saying they're going 9-7, but hey, get a middle of the round draft pick, shore up their offensive line. You can win with Stafford, but you got to put protection around them.
Very good points. Now, you, on your last podcast, you had me laughing, man, because you painted a picture, similar to what I did on the last show, for the guys on this show that listen, and my antics during the Packers game. And once we won, I had the whole deal with lavender and garlic.
Lavender.
And we're trying to make that a theme now. Lavender and garlic. We're going to try to get that going. So, hashtag lavender and garlic when you watch the Lions. But give the listeners what happened with you. I thought I went out there, but I was listening to your show, man. You had me cracking up. And like you said, this isn't an exaggeration. This is literally what you were doing. Tell them what Chris Gandy was doing after the Lions beat the Packers last week.
Yeah, man. So I got a 2-story condo that I rent, and I'm hype when I watch games, right? So I'm jumping up and down, smacking the walls, and I popped the shirt off, ripped the shirt off when we stopped the 2-point conversion with the guy off the street. I mean, I literally could have been that same DB making that play. So I got hyped like I was in the game, right? Hype, beating my chest, running around. But at home by myself. My wife's at work, so thank God. And then we lose the onside kick, and I just thought to myself, no way. This can't happen. And then when he lined up for the field goal, I'm like, he's not going to make this. He can't make it. I'm already up without a shirt. So I'm sitting in the living room. He misses the kick. He misses it. I don't know what happened. It was just instinct. Ripped off my clothes, ran around the house butt-ass naked. I don't know. I don't know where it came from. It was just instinct. We've never beat the Packers in Lambeau. I felt like a newborn baby. I felt like a kid. I just took all that weight off my shoulders, and it was gone. Ran and took a shower, and I went to the bar and drank. I just went to the bar and drank afterwards, and it just felt great to win a football game in Lambeau. Then to follow that up, back-to-back wins against Oakland.
Dude, the clothes were holding you back. Okay, that's all it comes down to. I wish I kept these and it's not just with the Lions. I've got several moments, and when I lived at home with mom and the sisters, they know this, and now the wife knows this. Big moments in games. I'm kind of like you. I should have a shrine of undershirts, wife beaters that are ripped. I go Hulk Hogan, and I do the whole thing, man. I wish, for instance, I did a preemptive one when I thought Armando Galarraga threw for the perfect game, or different Piston playoff wins or Lions wins. So I'm with you, man. Sometimes clothes just hold you back, so you gotta cut loose, man. So yeah, when you mentioned that on your show, you had me laughing. That's just some of the entertainment and some of the value you get, guys. So do yourself a favor and check out this show. Now, before we let you go, Chris, you kind of alluded to your prospect for this team rest of the year. We like to do predictions. I know you like to as well. We're 3-7. The toughest matchup is probably Green Bay, and that's at home. So you look, you got New Orleans. That's not too hard. You've got the Rams, the Niners. So there's some teams that are kind of similar records to us. Give me a win-loss record. What are the Lions going to be once this year is up? They're 3-7 now. What are they going to end up being?
I think they're 7-9. I think that they're going to finish this season, like you said. They got winnable games. They got 3 games in a row, including this one. They got the Eagles, who got mollywopped tonight by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then they got Green Bay back at home. There's guys out here fighting for jobs. You got Brandon Pettigrew, who wants to stick around in Detroit. He loves it here. Hello Inada, first-year guy, he was up to making $8 million this year. He's going to be looking to get a new deal. You got the Calvin Johnsons and the Matthew Staffords that want to be winners. And then you also got the other tier guys like Quandre Diggs, who had a good game today. Nevin Lawson, who I've heard on your show that you love. He had a good game back-to-back.
Yeah, that's my boy.
Guys are looking for experience. Alex Carter, who might see the field. Calvin Noy got an opportunity to get on the field today. So reps are important in games, man. For fans to think that these guys don't care, they put their soul on the line. They put their bodies on the line for these games. I mean, I saw Golden Tate after the game. I mean, he was elated. The body language, you and I, when you were on my show, we talked about it. His body language was off. When you win, your body language is a lot better. But his body is bruised and battered. He said, I heard him say he's beat up, but he can't wait to play on Thursday. It's a big city like this in Detroit that has a team like this. The city's just that much greater. It's just vibing that much more. The team feels it. I think they can go 7-9. If they get to 8-8, man, that's a hell of a run. I mean, in my opinion, there's no reason that Caldwell should be gone. But I like them to go 7-9 to finish this season this year.
Yeah, that's pretty good, man. I'm kind of flirting with 7-9 as well. I don't know, how things will go, but yeah, I think 6-7 wins is definitely reasonable, and that would be, quite the turnaround from 1-7. Hey, Chris, as always, we want to thank you for joining us on the show. This is the first time you're hearing him on here, but you'll be hearing him quite a bit more. Me and him, we met like a year and a half ago. Similar in our love and passion for the Lions, and we're both trying to do this podcast thing. So I look forward to hearing his voice a lot more. I love joining your show, so hopefully I get to go on there with you and Irv soon. Hey, Gandy, as always, thanks, man. Thanks for joining, and we look forward to having you again.
Of course, man. And how we met is crazy. I kind of felt like you was a celebrity, man. I ran into you at Will Call at a preseason game, and we exchanged numbers. I was like, yo, that's Jeremy Mallory from Pride of Detroit, man. So, hey, I'm glad you got a show, man. I like listening every week. I look forward to hearing many more shows, brother. All
right, cool, man. Thanks for joining us.
All right, man. Take care.
So there it is. Once again, we want to thank Chris Gandy for joining us. Looking forward to having him on the show in the near future. We're going to take a break at this time, guys. When we come back, we're going to talk about the 97-1 fiasco. We're going to take your questions. We're going to talk about the Turkey Day game, Thanksgiving against the Eagles. And yes, we'll open it up with, it's something I'm not proud of. I have an admission to make. I'm going to let a little secret out. I don't know if it's good for me as a podcaster to admit it, but you'll hear about it when we return. Jerry Mallory here for the Hindsight 20 podcast. Let's do a little business. Your ad can be placed, yes, right here. Support those who support us. It's a model that we like to use on the Detroit Sports Podcasting Network. If you're a good company, you want us to support you, to promote you, hit us up, hindsight20podcast@gmail.com. Let's do a little business. Okay, we're back. Now, that song is Back to Back by Drake. I mean, let's face it, we have not had an opportunity to have a ton of back-to-backs. We haven't had any this year, in fact. And so we're proud that the Lions got back-to-back wins, so we'll play a little back-to-back by Drake. But, yeah, it's now time to give the omission. I'm not proud of it. As a podcaster, you may start to doubt my credibility as a legitimate source for Lions news, views, and opinions. But, hey, here it is. I did it, guys. I mean, I'm sitting here after this game on the way home. The lovely wife drove. I'm on the phone, and I go to NFL.com, and I played that game. I played the what-if game. I played the whole standings game, and I played the schedule game, and I created the scenarios if the Lions can win out. If the Lions can go to 9-7, what could happen? Could we make the playoffs? I know, guys. Listen, I know it's not the smart thing to do. Maybe I got caught up in how, lively the crowd was at Ford Field. The cornbread was flowing. We talked about this last podcast. I said, if we win this game, there's a good chance that the crowd would be really raucous for Turkey Day. And the crowd was raucous today, as we predicted. By way of beating Green Bay, that energy would carry over. First game without Lawan and Mayhew, the crowd was there. The whole way through. It was very loud, the loudest I've seen it since Game 3, because there wasn't, there hasn't been a lot to cheer for. But we were cheering. You had Gridiron getting it in, doing what he had to do. I mean, it was really nice. And so maybe I got caught up in that hype. Maybe I got caught into that moment where the cornbread took me over, but I did it. I looked at the standings, I looked at the schedule, and I played the what-if game. What if the Lions went out 8 in a row, go 9-7? And here are my findings. And if you think this is ridiculous, I apologize. Just bear with me. Don't cut me off. Just give me this 2 minutes. Just give me the 2 minutes to talk about the scenario of us winning 9-7. No, I don't think it's going to happen, okay? I'm not predicting it. I don't think it. I just played the what-if game, which is a bad enough admission to make. So the fact that I went ahead and I'm being forthright with you, let's give me a second to play this out. So if the Lions go 9-7, their chances, ironically, of making the playoffs would be decent. If they go 9-7, that means they would have to beat teams like New Orleans, Philly, St. Louis, and San Francisco. Now, by beating all those teams and winning out, they would have better records and or own the tiebreakers over all of those games. And those are like 3 or 4 teams that are kind of in playoff contention, especially St. Louis and Philly. So you cross all those teams out. Then you have Dallas, who's right there, but it would be based on division records and all that. But unless they won out too, you could cross them out. It would only leave standing like 3 or 4 teams. You got the 4 division winners, and then you have 2 wild card teams. It looks like the 2 wild card teams will probably come from the NFC North and probably the NFC South. Right? At this point, you're looking at Minnesota and you're looking at Atlanta. So, yeah, you would have to concern yourself with those 2 teams. But there's a small chance, man. And I can't believe I played the schedule game. And, yes, our schedule does look a little bit easier than we maybe had thought. Aside from Green Bay, we're playing against a lot of teams. I think the rest of the slate, all those teams are under 500. So you got Green Bay next in 2 weeks, I should say, at home, in a week and a half technically because it's a Thursday night game. And then every other game is under 500. So I played the game. I did the what if, the 9-7, and my findings are, yes, if we won out and we went 9-7, our chances of making the playoffs are like 30-something%, man, which ain't too bad. Again, I don't think it will happen, but I played the game, and so there's my admission. I'm not proud of it, but it is what it is. So let's talk about the 97-1 fiasco just briefly. Just give you my spiel on it. First and foremost, if you haven't heard of it, come on. I mean, what in the world? You heard of it. 97-1 will no longer hold the Lions after this season. They didn't like the negativity of the team, and they actually made a demand that in order for them to continue doing what they do on 97-1, they wanted Mike Valenti to be fired. This made it out. There was a lot of talk about it. Valenti confirmed it. Even his agent confirmed it. He was on the Detroit Sports Podcasting Network Friday. And so it's weird. Now, for starters, I'm not a big fan of Valenti. I think he's overly negative, and I don't think he's always genuine with it. I do think him and Terry kind of have a little forethought in the roles that they play, good cop, bad cop. And so I think at times he's not completely genuine. He likes to make you think he's 100% forthright, but I think they do play a role of good cop, bad cop, which means, this guy can't be this negative all the time about everything. But he is good. I'm not denying that he's great at what he does, and I could be wrong about that. He could just be giving his opinion on things. But whether you like him or not, you have to agree that this was just a nasty and tactless and kind of dirtbag move by the Lions. I feel like this. The Lions are used to being bad at their job and still being able to support their families, still being able to make money. I mean, whether you love the Lions or hate them, you have to admit they've been bad at their jobs consistently, by and large, but they still make money. We still go, the NFL, the TV contracts. Valenti doesn't have that luxury. He can't sit here and be positive about the Lions when they've been this bad. If he were to be that positive, he wouldn't be doing his job. He would lose followers. The station would lose listeners. He would no longer be able to support his family. See, the Lions are just used to being bad at their job, but still having an ability to keep their job. Valenti can't do that. He's in no position to sit here and say all things are sunshine and roses for Detroit, specifically for the Lions. If he did, he'd be off the air. He has to be honest. And as much as I like to say Valenti's a little bit too negative, he's more honest about the Lions than most people are. And there's an integrity aspect. There's an honesty aspect. And props to 97.1 for sticking up for their guy. Valenti and Foster, the ratings are huge. And the Lions, being willing to go to 760 AM radio, snooze fest, old person radio, some people like to call it. I like 760 personally for certain things. But just to switch from 97.1 to 760, which looks like the primary reason was a radio host, not cool. Not cool at all. Now, I don't think this has anything to do with why the Lions have been so bad, because they concern themselves with radio stations. No, they have a PR department. The PR have made decisions. The two things don't really connect, in my opinion. But it's just a bad move. That's my spiel on, the whole 97.1 thing. Not the biggest Valenti fan, but it's kind of cool when you see a guy in the media pitted up against an NFL team. Definitely a David versus Goliath situation. And in this case, just like history shows, Goliath won. Goliath was victorious. Rather, David won. I'm sorry. David was victorious over Goliath. So, props to 97.1 for sticking up for their guy. Let's talk about the Thanksgiving Day game. We're going to get into some questions in just a little bit and wrap up the whole Oakland game. Let's talk about Thanksgiving. Now we're at 3-7. We'll be facing the 4-6 Philadelphia Eagles. Now, they have struggled. They've had 2 straight losses. This last one was ugly. They just lost at home to Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is now 5-5. Jameis Winston looking good. Threw for 5 touchdowns. But this is the second loss in a row, like we said, for the Eagles. And this time it wasn't that pretty. The final score was 45-17. So, it's 2 schools of thought on this. Either they will be looking to turn things around and improve and, kind of right the ship, or it's a downward spiral and this team just isn't that good and we'll feast on them come Thanksgiving Day. It can go one of either ways. Now, a lot of people were sitting there saying that losing Sam Bradford wouldn't hurt that much. I mean, he was, 11 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. So you put in Mr. Sanchez and it's about the same. Well, not quite today. Sanchez threw 3 interceptions against Tampa Bay. So it all depends, too, in my opinion, on if Sam Bradford plays. I do think Bradford is the better of the two. And so if we're sitting there and we're facing Mark Sanchez, that only increase our odds. Now, in terms of offense, this is where they shine. The Philadelphia Eagles are 9th in total offense, 14th against the pass, or with the pass, and 10 with the run. In terms of total defense, they are 25th. They're 16th in pass defense, 20th in run defense. So their strength is the offense still. Chip Kelly, he likes to do the high octane, no huddle, get as many plays in a small amount of time as possible. But they've been struggling. And so this could be a perfect storm. You got two teams on the opposite end of the spectrum as of late. Winners of 2 versus losers of 2. And so now they're coming to Thanksgiving where no matter how bad the Lions have been, and there have been Thanksgiving games where we looked bad, but even on some of our worst years, we've been able to surprise a team. We've been able to kind of step up. It's the tradition. And so it should be an interesting game. Now, one thing that the Philadelphia Eagles are pretty good at is getting after the quarterback. They're 11th in the league. Actually, us and Philly are tied with 24 sacks. So we're both kind of in that top 10. That could be an issue. They're pretty good at going after the quarterback. Our offensive line have been better, but Stafford has gone down so many times. You hate to see this kind of be an issue for this upcoming game. Now, Coda asked a question before we get into the other questions. Coda on Twitter, he asked if the streak will continue. Well, it's time for my prediction. I do think the streak continues for the Detroit Lions. I've got the Lions winning this one. It will be close. It won't be a 45-17 lapper like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were able to do on them. But I am predicting us to win this game. The crowd should be loud. I predicted a loud crowd for Oakland based on us winning in Green Bay. Another win. It's Thanksgiving. Big Sean is going to be in the house. I'm going to be there. It should be a very loud crowd, and I've got us winning, 2 in a row, the momentum. Let's make it 3. I've got the Lions winning, final score of 26-20. Plenty of this, plenty of that going on. So that's my prediction. Lions win this one. Like I said, this is a pretty, how can I word this? This is a pretty good 4-6 team. Does that make sense? To say that the Eagles are a pretty good 4-6 team, kind of an oxymoron. I do think that the last 2 games kind of show some chinks in their armor. But like I said, they are, if this makes any sense, a pretty good 4-6 team. They at one point was they were in the lead in the NFC East, and they could very well right the ship and turn things around. But I don't think it'll be this week. So hopefully I'm correct on that. I've been wrong quite a bit on my predictions lately. So hopefully I'm right on this, and the Lions roll on 2-3 in a row. So we have the lovely Miss Telly once again joining us. She has a few questions from some of you on Twitter. I appreciate it. As always, I can be found, Jerry Mallory NFL on Twitter. Hey, Telly, you got some questions for us? Some of the Twitter universe want to know some things, get some things answered. What you got for us?
First up, Triple OG Jamie and Joe Boo 3, both on Twitter, asks, where was the defense at the beginning of the year?
Now, this is a pretty good question. I talked about the defense. I believe it was the first podcast, and I mentioned 4 main issues as to why the defense has struggled as much as it has. To me, it was the loss of Sue being number 1, followed by Levy being injured. And then there was 2 older players that I felt like were really just causing our team to struggle on defense. And it was Rasheem Mathis and James Ahedebo. So what I think has happened to the defense is this. As far as those 2 guys that are not here, Sue and Levy because of injury, the team is learning how to play without them. Life without Sue. Not having this behemoth as a constant force, getting double teams, disrupting the middle. If he's not bringing the quarterback down, he's being accounted for. So I think that's one thing to consider. Number 2, it's the same with Levy. They're learning to play without Levy. And you saw Tahir Whitehead in coverage today doing some pretty good things. And then 3 and 4 has been remedied as well. Rasheem Mathis, now you hate to see a guy go down. You don't want to see anyone get injured. But he was struggling mightily. He's out for the year with a concussion. Enter Nevin Lawson. Lawson looks tons better than Rasheem Mathis has, and the same has happened with James Ahedebo. He's seen his playing time reduce greatly, and you see it's Abdul Kudus that is getting in there and playing more safety. So you have 4 huge issues, 2 of them being players that they relied on. They're learning to live without them. And props to Terrell Lawson for learning to scheme and adjust without losing 2 dynamic players. And then the 2 guys I thought that was just stinking up the joint, they aren't there right now. One got benched. One's out for the year with an injury. That's why I think the defense has all of a sudden arrived. And hopefully it keeps going. You got a Green Bay game where we talked about how much Green Bay struggled on offense. Well, they just went to Minnesota on the road, and which should be a better defense. They put up yards. They put up points. So I'm going to give Detroit a little bit more credit for the defensive effort they had on the road against Green Bay last week. Same with Oakland. Very good offensive team. Good running back, good receivers, good young quarterback, and we shut them down. So is this a trend? Yes, it's a trend. Will it stay? I think it will because of those 4 reasons that have been partially remedied. What you got next for us, Telly?
Next, Brian Ballard from Twitter asks, do we keep Caldwell? If so, how can we keep Austin?
All right, Brian, thanks for that. And thanks for your continued support. This is a guy that I know he's very active on Pride of Detroit, where I do the videos, and now he's joining us on the podcast. So thanks for that, Brian. To answer it quickly, I'll say no. I don't think we keep Caldwell, and so that would leave an opening for Terrell Austin. Let's say this defense last 7 games just really lights it up. There is a chance that he could be considered for a coaching job. Now, what are the scenarios in which Caldwell could stay? I think the bare minimum would be 8 wins. So that means you're going 7-1 toward the end of the year, which I don't think will happen. You go 7-1, that's 8-8. Your chances of staying, I think, are decent. Now, if Caldwell stays, that's because we've gone 8-8, 9-7 in my opinion, which means the defense kind of balled out toward the end of the year, which means Terrell Austin is gone. So I don't see a scenario next year where both Jim Caldwell and Terrell Austin are on the team next year. If I had to guess, I would say neither, because I'm still thinking that the coaching situation will change, especially for the fact that I'm even more confident that we'll have a new GM. Usually new GMs, no matter how good someone was before, wants to bring in their own guys. So thanks for that. Telly, you got one more question for us?
Finally, R82 Nest from Twitter asks, what's up with Ebron? Wasn't on the field a lot. All right, guys, see you Friday.
That's right, guys. If you didn't get the drift there, we'll be back this Friday. As you know, the show usually comes out on Mondays, but the schedule is we do our shows the day after a Lions game. You got the Thanksgiving Day game on Thursday, so we will have a brand new podcast for you while you're sitting in line trying to buy, I don't know, a garbage can or a coat or maybe a TV. Black Friday, early in the morning, you will have a Hindsight 20 podcast. But to answer that question, it's a pretty good one about Eric Ebron. What's going on with him? I think he's in the doghouse. Jim Caldwell won't admit it. Like I said earlier, just like he didn't admit it with Amir Abdullah. Abdullah was in the doghouse, man, okay? He had those fumbles, and Caldwell was not comfortable with him, especially a guy that's trying to save his job. It's the same with Ebron. Caldwell knows his margin for error is so small, and he may be beyond the point of no return. But when you got a guy that's dropping surefire touchdowns and a guy that's dropping third down conversions, hey, I'm trying to keep my job. I can't keep you out there. I don't care how fast you are. You don't block that great, so, Stafford can't stay upright, and you're dropping these passes. That's exactly what's happening to Ebron. It's simple. He's not catching. He's not blocking. You've got a coach that's desperate. As much as we want him to work out the young players and see what like a Kyle Van Noy or a Gabe Wright or an Amir Abdullah can do, Caldwell's not thinking like that. He's thinking preservation mode. I'm putting the best players on the field so I can win games. So maybe, just maybe, I can keep my job. And so Ebron, to me, is in the doghouse. If he doesn't improve, I think his playing time will keep diminishing, and they'll just keep running sets in which a tight end will not be at a premium. Hey, guys, this has been a fun show. It's one after a win. It's still a little bit different because, we're just used to it being a loss after a loss after a loss. But no, we're once again on the streak, man. We've been on so many losing streaks. I don't even know what a winning streak feels like. No, I do know. It feels good. Guys, we'll be back this upcoming Friday. Like I said, Black Friday, maybe you're doing some shopping. Maybe it's just like a day off of work where you can relax, sitting at home. You got your leftovers. You're doing whatever. Maybe you're going to go see the new Rocky movie. Perhaps you got to work Friday. That kind of sucks, but I've had to work the day after Thanksgiving, no doubt. Whatever you'll be doing, we'll be back. Like I said, the day after a Lions game. You got a Lions game on Thursday. Show is on Friday. Following week, it's another Thursday game. We'll be back once again on a Friday. As always, guys, Jerry Mallory, NFL is where I can be found at on Twitter. Hindsight 20 Podcast on Gmail if you want to send us an email. Detroit Sports Podcast Network. It's premiere. The Lions win. Let's celebrate. Stop the negativity, okay? Don't worry about draft picks. Don't worry about, Sheldon White staying or Jim Caldwell staying. Listen, we don't get a lot of these this year. Call it wins. Enjoy the win. Take it for what it's worth. I'll be back this Friday. Hopefully it will be another victory, Turkey Day, against the Philadelphia Eagles, but win, lose, or draw. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening to this one, and I will see you this Friday.